Well, Joey, if you're looking for specific info, you can skip to the chapter you want below. In this video, we're going to set up parts to define an assembly pattern, define a rectangular pattern in an assembly sketch, use the pattern command to pattern assembly parts, suppress unwanted items from an assembly pattern. We're going to look at some advanced part copy techniques using the steering wheel. We'll look at the effect of using assembly patterns on assembly relationship options and the assembly relationship assistant. If you're following the playlist, we'll also fill in the gaps in the first tower and top off the wall. Alright, so that's a good start. We've got our two towers there and we can begin filling in the gaps. So I'm going to click on one of these blocks and choose to open it. We can go back to our assembly, click within the parts library, hit F5 to refresh, and that block appears. So I'm just going to drag that into the assembly. We'll create assembly relationships between the pegs on this block and the pegs on the base plate. Okay, so that's fully constrained and placed, that block, and we can create another one maybe on where we want the top corner of our wall to end. So I'm going to drag in another 4x2 block and I'm going to create assembly relationships between the axis of this peg and this peg, between the axis of this peg and this peg. And now I'm going to create an assembly relationship between the bottom of this block and the bottom of this block. Alright, so this looks a little bit odd, but what we have created here is a block here on the bottom left corner of the wall and a block on the top right corner of the wall. So we're going to use these to define an assembly pattern for the wall. So I'm going to create a sketch, and for the sketch we're going to use the front face of this block as our sketch plane, and I'm going to use project to sketch, and I'm going to project the front face of this block to the sketch plane and the front face of this block. I'm going to tick this box and exit out of that command, and we can go over here and we can go to features and choose rectangular pattern, and our prompt bar is saying click on elements to pattern. So I'm going to scroll down here and I'm just going to choose this sketched outline of our block, go back up here and just tick this box, and now Solid Edge has moved on to draw the profile of our pattern, and there's different options here. So we can enter the X and Y values for our pattern, how many instances on the X and Y direction. So I'm going to enter 5 in the X and 8 in the Y. And before we choose anything, you also notice we have stagger options here. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to change the stagger to row, and stagger equals half offset. And you'll notice, let me just change it back. I'll change it to none. And you see we have a kind of a regular rectangular pattern. But when we change it to row and stagger equals half offset, we have this kind of alternating pattern, similar to how we want our blockwork to appear. So I'm just going to click OK. We can enter the width and height of our pattern here, but also we have in the prompt bar, click for the first point. So instead of entering the values, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to click on the bottom left corner of the sketch for this block. And now Solid Edge is saying click for the second point. And for the second point, I'm going to choose the bottom left corner of the sketch of the front face of this block. And now Solid Edge has kind of drawn a staggered pattern with the outline of our blocks. And it looks pretty good. So I'm going to tick this box to accept that and click finish and cancel. We can go here and we can choose the pattern command. And our prompt bar is saying click on items to include in the pattern. What I want to include in the pattern is this block. I want to pattern this block. If we go up here, we still have this in the prompt bar, click on items to include in the pattern. I'm happy with that, so we can move on from the select item step. I can just complete that, and now we have select part. I'm just going to click on that to expand it. It's not telling us anything, but our prompt bar is saying click on the part or sketch which contains the pattern. So the sketch that contains the pattern is here, but it's a little bit difficult to click on. I can also just choose the sketch here, so we can expand our sketches and choose sketch 1. And now we've moved on to the next step, select the pattern feature. So now that we've selected our pattern, it's kind of easier to select because Solid Edge knows where it's looking for the pattern, and there's only really one pattern within the sketch. So as I hover over the outline here, you can see the orange rectangle getting highlighted, and that's the orange rectangle that defines this pattern, this sketch pattern. So I can click on that and Solid Edge builds a wall based on that pattern. So we can click finish, and there's our pattern, and we can expand out our pattern to look at all of the items in it. And I'm just looking here at item number 39. That looks like that is interfering with the block here. I don't click on the part, I click on item 39 and choose suppress. So now that part has been suppressed within Solid Edge, but it's still not really evident because the part we used to define our pattern is still present. So I can click on that, and I can also suppress that. And now we're looking better. These other blocks here look fine. Next we can start filling in the gaps here. And I just noticed that the block I've hidden here for the tower. So I can just click on the tower, go over here, choose default configuration and click OK. And I'm just going to choose apply to all occurrences just to show all of the parts in both towers. And now that is displayed. And we just want to maybe fill in the gaps along the wall here. And to do that, we're going to use these 2x1 blocks. So I'm going to click on one of these, click open, go back to our castle assembly, click within the parts library, press the F5 key to refresh, and now that part appears. So now I'm going to drag that block into our assembly, click on the axis of this peg, this peg, this peg, and this peg, and I'm going to try and pick up on the bottom face of this part by hovering, right click for quick pick, choose the bottom face, and choose the top face of our base plate. That's fully constrained, that part. So I'm going to click on that part, maybe move the steering wheel, and I'm trying to, I got the steering wheel around the base of the peg. So I'm going to press Control, click on this arrow, copy the block up to the center of this peg, and we're going to repair unsatisfied relationships, replace the other components where possible, click OK, and we're going to search for relationships with this block, and this block, and click accept. That's fully constrained, and I'm going to just keep that steering wheel position. So I'm going to press the space bar to go into part add remover mode, and I'm going to choose the part below it. So now we've two parts selected. I haven't moved the steering wheel. I'm going to keep that as the base point of our copy. So I press Control, click on this vertical arrow of our steering wheel, and I'm not going to copy to here. I'm going to copy to up here, and I'm hovering around the base peg of this block, and I click, and we're going to replace the other components where possible. So I click OK, choose this block, this block, this block, and this block, and click accept. So both of those parts are now fully constrained within the assembly. And let's take a look at the other side of this line, and we have gaps to fill in here as well. We have 3 gaps to fill in. I think we could get a little bit fancy for them. So maybe let's click the top block here, press the space bar, click this block and choose this block. I'm going to move the steering wheel to the peg here in around the base of the peg. I didn't get it right. So I'm going to click on the center of the steering wheel again. And I think, that's not it either. As there's more and more geometry in the background, it gets more difficult to choose. So I'm going to try again. So there we go. We got it in around the base of our peg there. So I'm going to press the Shift key, click on this blue disc, and that has flipped our steering wheel 90 degrees. Now I'm going to press Control, click on the blue disc to copy those 3 parts in the plane of the blue disc. So they are floating around together with the offset of the source parts. And I'm going to go in here to this side of the wall and try to set our 2 point at the base of this peg. And we're going to replace other components where possible. So I click OK and choose the components to search for relationships to. So the part above and below each of these blocks. Okay, so I think that's them. I'm going to click accept, and those 3 parts are now fully constrained within our assembly, and those gaps are filled in. So we can do similar again. This time maybe let's do something fancy with copying these 4 blocks here. So I click on the bottom one, maybe move my steering wheel to the base of this peg, and now I'm going to press the space bar and choose the other 3 blocks. This blue disc of the steering wheel is horizontal, which is the plane I want to use. So I'm going to press Control, click on the blue disc, and we're copying those 4 parts now, parallel to our top plane. And for the 2 point, I'm going to choose the center of this peg here, and we're going to replace the other components where possible. So I click OK, and I choose the base plate. Oh, yes, okay. Solid Edge isn't so good at searching for relationships to blocks within a pattern. We have the base plate selected because that's not in a pattern, and I can choose the blocks in our subassembly here, which is our tower. And I'm just going to click accept, and Solid Edge finds relationships for all of those parts. And we can do the same again. So I just press an escape to deselect those 4 parts. Okay, so I'm going to click on this part, and I'm going to click on the center of the steering wheel to move it to the base of the peg in here, and click there and just check. Yeah, that looks correct. So now I'm going to press the space bar to enter into part add remove mode, and now I'm going to click on the other parts to select to add them to the selection set. So this part and this part. Now we're looking good. I'm looking at the steering wheel here, and the blue disc of the steering wheel is parallel to the top plane, which is what we want. So I'm going to press the Control key, click on the blue disc of the steering wheel. So we're copying those 3 parts and we're moving them around parallel to the top plane. And I'm going to go around here, and we want to copy them to in around here. So I'm moving in, I want to pick up on this peg in here, the bottom of it, and this looks correct to me. I'm just going to right click to activate quick pick, and we have this edge here, or this edge here, and you'll see the second one is actually probably a peg behind it on the base plate. So it looks like the top one is the correct peg, so I click on that, and we're going to replace the other components where possible. Click OK. And the components we can choose are the blocks above and below each block. And to be safe, we could choose the blocks beside them as well. Click accept, and Solid Edge has found relationships to each of those blocks. They're all fully constrained within the assembly. And now that we've done that, I can maybe hide this sketch just to make things look a little bit tidier. I'm going to open up part number 4 and just maybe add that into the assembly as well. So we can refresh our parts library and drag that part in. And again, just maybe choose the bottom face of the part and the top face of this part. So it's a little bit difficult to see, and part of that is because the base plate here is in our way. So I'm going to hide the base plate, and now we can look in here and we can see a little bit better. And I'm probably just going to hit escape to get out a flash fit, and now we can see our part here. And I'm just going to drag it closer to where we want it with a freeform move. So just drag it out here. That's way better. Now I'm going to choose flash fit again, choose the axis of this peg, the axis of this peg, the axis of this peg, and this peg. They're all brought together. And if I click on that, I'm just going to hit escape actually. If I click on that part now, it's fully constrained within the assembly. And next we could maybe look at topping off this wall here. So I'm maybe just going to click on this part and open it, and maybe click on this part and open that too. So we can go back to our assembly of our castle, refresh the parts library with F5, and now we have those parts. So our 7x1 I can drag in here. We're using flash fit again, so just choose the axis of this peg with the axis of this peg, the axis of this peg with the axis of this peg, and try and fish around for the bottom face of this part. So I right click for quick pick, choose the bottom face, and choose the top face of this part. That looks good. And I'm going to maybe click on this part, move the steering wheel to this peg here. Top or bottom is okay. And I'm going to press Control, click on this arrow and copy across to this peg here and click. And we're going to replace other components where possible. So I click OK, and choose the 2 parts below. Okay, so I've chosen one part and Solid Edge seems happy with that. Oh, the problem is the other parts are in the pattern and Solid Edge isn't picking up on them easily. So I'm just going to click accept and delete. And if we scroll down, okay, so we have kept the mate relationship. We haven't got the others. So let's try something here instead. So I click on this part and I'm going to choose this assembly relationship assistant. Click on that and we have options here. Check select set 1 against, and I'm just going to choose select set 2. Click OK. And first, so we have select set 1 is selected. That is the block we just copied. So I tick this box. And now our prompt bar is saying click on parts to define select set 2. So I'm just going to click on this blue block here. We can't select these 2 blocks here because they're part of a pattern. So I'm going to tick this green box to finish that. And we have different relationships to search for: mate, planar align, allow offsets, axial align, and connect. We don't need to allow offsets, so just mate, planar align, and axial align is okay. I'm going to keep the tolerance to minimum and click process. And Solid Edge has picked up on these different relationships here between the 2 parts, 2 axial aligns, and a mate. That sounds very promising, so I'm going to click accept and close. I'm going to click finish here and cancel. So if we click on that part now, that's fully constrained within the assembly. We can take a look down here on the different assembly relationships. We have this mate. If I click on that, that's between the bottom face of this block and the top face of that block. And if we choose the axial align, you can see it's chosen an axial align between the hollow of this cylinder, of the hollow inside the peg and the peg below it, which is perfect. And if we choose this axial align, it's the same thing again between these 2 pegs, which is fine. And we have this mate relationship here, which is between the top face of this block and the bottom face of the block. So I'm happy with all of those. That seems to have done everything perfectly. All we really need to do now is bring in a block here to fill this gap. So I'm going to drag in this 4x1 block, and I'm going to try to do a flash fit between the top face of this block and the top face of this block. We can do between the front face of this block and the front face of this block. And let's see if we can pick up on an axial align. I don't think so. I'm going to try between this block, the axis of this peg, and the axis of that peg. Oh, that did work. Okay. Yeah, so it looks like Solid Edge will happily mate to patterned blocks, but it isn't very good at using Assembly Relationship Assistant to pick up on what relationships would occur between patterned items and other parts, or to kind of infer them from copying using the steering wheel. So you need to kind of do it manually one at a time rather than more efficiently with the steering wheel. That's just a trade-off of using assembly patterns within Solid Edge. Alright, so let's top off this wall here. So I'm going to choose bring in this block, and again we're going to create relationships between the pegs. I accidentally right clicked there, so I'm going to choose flash fit again, choose this peg and this peg, and I'm going to hover around to try to get the bottom face of this part. Right click for quick pick, choose that face and the top face of this part. Looks good. And let's copy that part along now. So I click on it, move the steering wheel to the peg here, press Control, click on this arrow, and we're going to copy it across to this peg here. We're going to replace the other components where possible, click OK, and we're going to search for relationships with the part below, click Accept, and that's looking good. But instead of just copying this part, maybe we could copy the one beside it. So I'm happy with the position of this steering wheel. I'm just going to press my space bar, add this part to the select set, press Control, click on this arrow, and copy the parts across to here. I'm going to choose Repair Unsatisfied Relationships, replace the other components where possible, click OK, and choose the 2 parts below them, click Accept, and the parts are fully constrained within the assembly. Let's look at the other side of this wall here. So now we can just fill in a walkway between these 2 towers. So I've opened up our 5x2 block, and I'm just going to hit refresh on our parts library with open documents, and I'm going to go scroll down to, there's our part there, and just drag that into the assembly, create an axial line between this peg and this peg, this peg and this peg. Hover around to pick up on the bottom face of this part. Right click for quick pick, choose the bottom face, choose the top face of this part. That looks good. And we can do the same again. This time I'm going to pull it in on the other side. Create an axial line between this peg and this peg, this peg and this peg. Select the bottom face of this part. Right click for quick pick, choose the bottom face and the top face of this part. And I'm going to drag this one in here. And again, create an axial line between these pegs and maybe a planar line between the top face of this part and the top face of this part. So now we just have a 3x2 gap to fill in. So we can get the 3x2 part we created earlier. Open that up. Go back to the assembly. I'm just going to hit refresh and drag that part in. And again, we're going to create an axial line between these pegs and a planar line between the top face and the face of the part beside it. So now those parts are all fully constrained and we can move on. So at this stage, maybe I could show again the base plate. In our next video, we'll begin creating the front wall and gateway arch of our castle. Use assembly groups. Look at a nifty technique to efficiently modify an assembly. That's it, Joey. Talk to you in the next one.